All right. Hi, everyone. I am here today with Dan Farkas, the amazing professor, PR pro, wonderful human, all the things. Dan, as many of you know, is a professor at Ohio University. He also runs a company called PassPR. And we've worked together on a cohort providing training and development for account executives. And so thought it would be a good opportunity to interview Dan and get his take on what the value is there and what sorts of things you can learn from it. So, Dan, I'm an account executive. Why would I sign up for this course?
I Here's what I see. I see a lot of really creative people who like doing the work part, but then they struggle with a lot of the organization and the operational stuff. And they struggle with the organization and the operational stuff because they didn't take those courses in college because it's not what they wanted to do. And the result of that is they get into a position where they're very good creatively, but when it comes time to work with others and to manage others, that's a really newfound process.
Yeah.
And I think we know the first time you do anything, it's not perfect. And the result of that, if you're in college, no big deal. You get a B instead of an A, whatever. If you're in a professional setting, you get promoted and suddenly you're trying to do these things or you're trying to get that promotion. That can be a really tricky process for people. And my hope is folks who have some of those concerns will be able to look for ways to build them in a more safe and nurturing environment where there's not jobs and promotions and careers and projects and other stuff on the line.
So when you say, the operational side of client service, um, what are we talking about? Project management, budgets? Like what do you mean by that?
So when I think operations, how can you get your team to effectively work? I will talk to folks all the time and ask them, how many of you have had a bad experience working with a team? And everyone will raise their hand. And then you ask, well, what went wrong with the team? And they don't really know. So this looks at ways to say, how can we understand how teams may run into barriers and how do you get around those barriers? It's also working with different clients. We, in many cases, might take a psychology class here or there, but clients have very nuanced needs and a host of things going on that maybe don't impact, they maybe don't impact your contract. They impact your world because they impact the client. How can we identify certain client characteristics and look at those not as, oh my gosh, this person emails me 14 times a day, but here's how I can showcase my value to that person. So how can we work with teams? How can we work with clients? And without people feeling, without people feeling like they have to get an MBA, how can we understand some of the math behind the business to
Mhm.
understand how the business grows, how the agency grows, how the organization grows? Because when your work aligns with those ideas, it makes it a much easier call for some manager to say, we want to be able to move you up because you understand a lot of that larger process.
Business acumen, right? We're actually doing a session on that at our next team retreat. One of the coaches that many people who are watching this probably know, who I work with, is doing a session at a conference we're attending soon called The Owner's Mindset. And she's reframing that for us to think more about business acumen because, we all remember being, in the weeds and you're just kind of focused on your own things. And you might not always think about how your work or what's going on in the bigger picture of not only your agency, but also to your point, your clients, right? Like if you're working with a CMO or a CEO, what are the things that are impacting their world and how are they thinking then about the relationship and the needs that they have?
And you said two
Um,
things that I thought were really interesting. One is understanding some of those things happening in the client's world that maybe aren't in your wheelhouse. There are plenty of things you can do because you're a nice human being to let those people know you're thinking about them without this
mhm,
idea of, oh, I'm trying to sell you, I'm trying to sell you, I'm trying to sell you, I'm trying to
right.
sell you. And when you think about your ability to help that individual and look for ways to show that you're watching out for them, those things are those are easy ways you can grow opportunities within an organization without you feeling like you have to sell. And a lot of times we might look at that lens and not really see where that fits in a larger picture, or wonder, well, why should I be sending articles to clients if it's not directly involved with the scope of work and all these other things? Well, ultimately, we want to be an asset and not a liability. And there are a
Mhm.
lot of things we can do in that space to showcase value beyond what's specifically in a contract.
Right. And articles are a great way, right? Especially when they're related to their business or something. But even things like they mentioned they were going to their kids' out of town softball tournament, right? Hey, did Sally win? How are the games? That sort of thing. So what can people who are participating in the cohort expect? Like, what's the setup? What do I have to do? What's that sort of thing?
The thing that we try to do more than anything else is allow you to practice, because the only way I know how to get better at doing any of this stuff is to be able to practice within reason. And one of the things that I think we get a lot of really good feedback from folks about is creating those environments where you can practice these concepts, but being able to practice those concepts in a way that works best for you. We've had people work with nonprofits and tackle nonprofit work that's been on their to-do list, but they were able to do it in this way. We had people use this as a business development opportunity to potentially grow a new account, or thinking about current accounts and how you might be able to do things differently. The content is the content, and I think Molly's expertise and my expertise offer different perspectives, but both of us are in a position where we want to make sure that as you do the work, it can directly connect the moment you get done with this and go back into your work world. And I think the people who participate in this find a lot of value being able to say, I can leave this cohort knowing 4 or 5 things I can do with either work or nonprofit or other areas to be able to grow and apply the stuff that we're using. And for us, I think that's the value that we see is they just didn't go through the material and read and watch the videos and talk, but it's that one-on-one, let's review these things, let's identify some layers, and here's how you go out and take it and run with it when it's all said and done.
So we offer there's pre-records videos that people can watch at their own leisure, right? Because we know how difficult it can be to schedule something consistently. There's other things that come up. And then there's homework, light homework, everyone. It's not super hard, right? But things to do so that you can actually put the skills you're learning and developing into practice. And then I would say, last year you offered, should I call
Yeah,
them office
we meet for
hours?
30 minutes. Yeah. So and homework is a strange phrase because we've intentionally tried to create projects and opportunities that you can use for a current client, a prospective client, a nonprofit. It's not something that you do to never be used again. And what's interesting, when we do the option, people have the option if they want, we will do these one-on-one 30-minute sessions to go through it. And the questions that come from that almost inevitably relate to some project that's on their to-do list. And in a weird way, someone said this, and I wish I could remember who, but they jokingly called it agency therapy. And I am by no means a therapist, but there is something to be said about having people who understand the industry to talk about some of those nuances and look for ways to take the material and directly connect it. I think our goal is to be as applied as possible in terms of what the learning outcomes look like.
Much better phrasing than homework. I liked homework, but I was the school nerd,
You
so
were good at it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything else that you think is important that people who are considering this either for themselves or for their team should know?
If I work for an organization and I have young talent, this is a way to show that young talent we're investing in them, and we're investing in them in a way that aligns with what we're trying to do as an organization. Yes, we have video material that everyone accesses, but Molly and I both talk to the people overseeing an organization to make sure that we can connect things as much as possible. So we don't want it to be cookie cutter for everyone. I think if you're somebody thinking about trying to take the next step or the next leap, this will give you concrete material that you can use And as you're going through meetings and sessions and reviews, it allows you to have something very tangible to explain that this isn't just a gig for you. This is a place where you want to grow and be. And ultimately, yes, there are things you learn, there are projects you do, but I tend to think that anybody getting involved in this is also involved in sort of a trust exercise with their employers, because it shows you're interested and the employers know that we have somebody that we care about and we want to see them grow.
Well said. Thanks so much, Dan. We look forward to seeing all of you join us. If you have questions, reach out to either of us. We're happy to help. The registration page will be in the link, so feel free to join us there. See you soon.